guys, welcome to my channel. I'm the Savvy Daughter, and today I want to do a full garden tour. I haven't showed you guys how all of my garden plants are growing since I planted them. Really, I've made a whole lot of garden videos this season, but I have not really gone around the whole garden and showed y'all everything all at once at all this year, so I want to do that today. Come along with me and let's get started. Now, as we go, you're going to see some plants that have thrived and done really well and that I'm really happy with, and you're going to see some plants that absolutely did terrible and I'm really disappointed in. I'm going to show y'all both, all the good, all the bad, just everything that's going on in my garden, and you're going to get to see what I've been able to make out of my garden this year, basically, at least so far. I've been getting just the very beginning of fruit harvests this week, so I've been harvesting a few things here and there, and it's about to be basically the season where a lot of things come ready at once. I just want to show y'all kind of at the peak of garden season what my garden looks like, whether good, bad, everything in between. So yeah, I want to start off with one of my most positive crops so far this year, and that is my Lima beans. Of course, y'all can see them in front of me. They've gone a little bit crazy. I even had to put up a little makeshift trellis, and it's done really well so far. I planted these Lima beans with no real expectations as to what they were going to do because I had just built this raised bed. I've never done any raised bed gardening before, so I had no idea what to expect, and I just decided, what the heck, let's plant some limas and see what happens. I've been so happy with it so far, and a bunch of my lima plants are covered in blooms. So I'm going to have little bean pods forming soon, and I'm just so happy with how they've done so far. These limas have grown and grown and grown to the point where I've just got little vines, you know, folded over. Like, some of these vines are really tall, and I've just folded them over to make sure that they can stay on the trellis like they were. But yeah, I've had some pretty explosive lima bean growth, and that's been awesome. So my raised bed has been a success so far, and I'm really happy with how my raised bed is done because my limas have grown so well in it, and it has definitely helped me keep weeds out of my limas. So this is a good thing to start with. And when these limas first sprouted, I was really concerned about them because I planted seeds. The seeds kind of exploded and made like this really big lima bean at the very beginning before they even had roots, really. And we had this, like, it wasn't a bad storm, but it was just a considerable little thunderstorm. And like, all of my lima bean plants kind of flopped over right at the beginning of their lives, and I was like, oh no, they barely even had a chance to get started and they're already ruined this early. But they were able to just kind of stand themselves back up, at least for the most part, and they just kept growing. Now I have a bit of a lima bean forest, so hopefully it'll produce some beans. Okay, the next thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is how my tomatoes are doing. I have a little bit of a mixed feeling towards these tomatoes. They've grown a lot since I planted them. I mean, of course, when I planted these tomatoes, some of them were only a few inches tall. So of course they've grown since then, but they're definitely not thriving, at least, you know, for tomato plants. Tomatoes get really huge, especially some of the varieties I have. Like, I have 2 Cherokee purple tomato plants. Those are indeterminate varieties, and they're supposed to get really, really tall. And I've seen really huge Cherokee purple tomato plants. Well, mine aren't all that huge, and they're still growing and stuff. Like, since they are indeterminate, they're just going to keep on growing until the weather gets cold. But these tomatoes have not performed as well as I would have hoped. So I have some interesting feelings toward these tomatoes. They're definitely improved from last year, and that was the goal. Also, y'all remember last year I had hornworms? I had hornworms again. I found a couple of them yesterday and had to just pull them off. Those things are just kind of gross. I really hate hornworms. So if y'all have any suggestions for keeping hornworms away, let me know. I know there's a ton of things people do to try to prevent them. Overall, my tomatoes have done okay, and as you can see, some of the tomatoes on these plants are turning ripe. They're going to be ready to pick really soon. So that's good. But the plants certainly have not thrived as well as I hoped they would have, and so it's just kind of a mixed report, I suppose, on my tomatoes. As for the next thing I have to show y'all, I don't want to spend too much time on it because this has been something that's been really disappointing to me. I planted 5 bell pepper plants right here in front of me. They were right beside my tomatoes. Basically, 2 of them still look good and are still producing a couple of, you know, bell peppers here and there. They haven't grown real well, but they have produced some bell peppers. One of them ended up being some sort of weird, like, genetic mutation. I don't know what's wrong with it, but I'll just show you up close what's going on. But it's not producing bell peppers. They are just oddly shaped, but it's also not some sort of other pepper. So I don't know what it is. If y'all have any idea, you can tell me, but it's just a really weird thing that's happening. One of them is actually a banana pepper plant, and I didn't know it. It must have just been labeled wrong, so there's that, and then one of them died. So I planted 5. I've got one that's gone crazy, one that's actually not a bell pepper plant, one dead one, and 2 that have produced a few bell peppers and are producing a few more, but didn't really grow at all. They're kind of like close to the same size they were when I put them in the ground. So the pepper thing has been very disappointing. It has not gone well, and and the bell peppers that they have produced have been all right, but they're a little bit chewy. They're nothing like a store bell pepper. This has not been something that has worked for me. Now, the next thing I have to show you guys is my strawberries, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them either because I made an entire video updating my strawberry plants already, but there has been nothing disappointing about my strawberry plants this whole year. I was able to harvest a whole bunch of ripe, sweet, amazing strawberries. They've just continued to grow and grow and grow. Their leaves are doing something a little bit funny where they're kind of like curled up. They're like in a bowl shape, and it's not because they're dry. I've been being really careful to make sure they get enough water, so it's not because they're dry. I don't know why they're doing it, but besides that little thing, which I'm not really concerned about, my strawberries have absolutely done amazing. They went above and beyond my expectations, so this is one of those experiments that I'm so happy about. They've grown exponentially since I planted them, and they continued to do so even in the hot weather. So I'm so proud of my strawberries, and this is one of the greatest updates I have today. My summer squash did nothing at all. My summer squash bed is right beside me, and you can hardly even tell that there's anything in the bed except for a few weeds. It was a very bizarre thing, actually. I planted all of my summer squash, and only a couple of them ever germinated and sprouted. I had to actually replant them like 2 or 3 times to get them to sprout. And at first I thought it was just because I had bad seed, because literally none of them sprouted, and it was very, very strange. So I just replanted them a couple of times. I bought some new seed. They eventually ended up sprouting, like all of them sprouted, and then they literally just didn't grow at all. I mean, they're like this big. It is so weird. And they've been blooming and like getting these teeny tiny little squash on them, and then they don't go anywhere. It's like they're not pollinating or whatever, which I'm not surprised about because these plants are just clearly not healthy. But yeah, this has been something really odd. It's like, I don't know. Very weird squash situation. My cucumbers are absolutely beautiful. A couple of their vines have even climbed almost to the top of my trellis. I was so happy with my cucumbers, and they're producing these pretty long, beautiful looking cucumbers. I mean, I could show you one of them. They're great. But I harvested the first one yesterday, and we ate it, and it was a little bit bitter. It was not bad. Like, it was not something that I had to spit out. I was able to eat a couple of pieces, but if the only thing you can say about your cucumbers is it was chewable, it was not a good cucumber. That's all I have to say. And honestly, that was something that was really disappointing to me, because these cucumbers were something that I thought were doing really well in my garden. They've been growing great. They look beautiful, but the fruit is bitter. At least on the first one I tried. I haven't tried any others, so hopefully when I eat a few more, they won't be as bitter. And I haven't got a clue why these cucumbers, or why the first cucumber was bitter. I don't know. But when I ate it yesterday, I was rather disappointed about it, because this is something that I thought was doing well, and apparently it's not doing as well as I thought. But they are beautiful. It's kind of a mixed review, I guess. They're gorgeous. The cucumbers are a little bit bitter, at least the first one was. I've only eaten one. Hopefully they'll get better as I keep eating them, but that's what I can say for now. The final vegetable plant that I have to show you guys was a surprise to me, and it is this pumpkin. This crazy pumpkin vine that's growing all over the ground in front of me. It started trying to grow up my cucumber trellis. It's been growing all over the compost pile, like taking over everything. It's completely crazy. There's been blooms all over the middle of it. I haven't been able to find any pumpkins yet, like any small pumpkins. But, when I first saw this vine start growing out of my compost, I debated for a while about what it was. At first, I thought it was a squash, and then it got too big to be a squash. And then I thought it was a cucumber. And then it got too big to be a cucumber, and its stems were like too thick to be a cucumber plant, and eventually Daddy was like, that is a pumpkin. So that's what this thing is. It's been blooming like crazy. It's literally growing every single day, even now. I come out here and it's just like 2 feet longer. It's crazy. It was starting to take over my cucumbers, and I had to like move the vines to make sure that it wouldn't. So it's really crazy. I'm gonna just let it be, let it do what it does. I really like watching it, and if I can get any pumpkins from it, I'll roast some pumpkin seeds or something from my compost pumpkin. I've loved watching it grow, and I haven't even done anything to it. I literally haven't even watered it one time. I mean, it's so funny because it never wilts. It's like it never needs it. So this thing is awesome just because I've enjoyed watching it. It's been fun, and maybe I'll get a pumpkin from it, or multiple pumpkins from it, really. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. And if I do, I'll do something cool with it. So that's awesome. And it's also funny because this pumpkin vine makes me think, you know, I've tried to grow so many things in a specific bed and everything, and then it doesn't work out. Like, my cucumbers are a little bit bitter, my squash are just a total disaster. But it just makes me think, if I just took all of my seeds and slung them in my compost pile, would they grow better like that than they do in the beds I put them in? I plant all this stuff. Some of it worked, some of it doesn't, and then I get this accidental pumpkin just exploding out of nowhere, and it's like, did I miss something? Heck, if there's one thing I can say though, I can tell y'all that my toilet planter is gorgeous. My marigolds took off immediately after I planted them, and they've kind of formed like a solid shrub of marigolds in the bottom. And in the top, my lantana have just been growing pretty slowly. They've been blooming beautifully, and if nothing else, I've got a beautiful toilet planter. And the last thing I wanted to show y'all and update you on completely concerns how I plan to expand my garden going forward. That is my 2 brand new big old raised beds. This is what my last week's video was all about. I showed y'all how I filled up these raised beds without spending virtually any money. Some people buy all kinds of potting soil to put in their big old raised beds, and that's a good way to do it, but if you don't have the money, or you don't want to spend that kind of money filling up raised beds, you can do it using things you have, and that's what I did last week. I want this update to be, on the whole, positive. There have been plants this year that have certainly not grown as well as I had hoped, especially because I've put a whole year, nearly 2 years at this point, of work into my garden. I was kind of hoping that some of my plants would perform better than they have, but I am determined to keep trying, and I'm thankful for my beautiful strawberries and my beautiful beans, my beautiful toilet planter, and my pretty good tomatoes. I'm trying what I can think of, and y'all are coming along with me and watching me try all kinds of stuff that I've never tried before. So sometimes when you've never tried things before, it just doesn't work out as well as you had hoped. I'm determined to keep having patience and keep learning how to garden. Going into next year, it will be my 3rd year of gardening, and I'm ever so slowly shaping this garden up to be something productive and just to be something that I enjoy. I love growing plants. That's why I do all of this, basically, because I love fiddling around with plants. I love growing them. I love watching them grow. Plants are really just my thing. I love plants. So I wanted to learn how to garden really badly, and I am learning. Even though it's slow, all in all, I want this to be a positive update because I want y'all to know that I'm going to keep trying. We're expanding. We're going to keep growing. And that's what we're doing. So if I can figure out how to see y'all through my little forest, I want to say, to finish everything up, thank you guys so much for watching and coming along with me today. I'll see you on the next one. I hope you enjoyed. Maybe this video was helpful to y'all. Maybe it was a little bit encouraging. If y'all are also new gardeners, if you're learning how to do this stuff, if some of your plants are thriving or not thriving, I hope that this video was a little bit encouraging to you gardeners out there, because you can do it. You just need to keep trying, and I'm going to keep trying. I hope y'all enjoyed. I'll see you on the next one.